I'm always on the lookout for any type of new deck builder games. And one just got sent to me recently that I thought would be fun to talk about, and it's Welcome to Susberg. This is a family weight deck building game where you're going to be playing as a group of teenagers defending against different types of monsters attacking your neighborhood. So let's go to the table and learn how to play and give you my final thoughts. All right, welcome to the table. My name is Brian. If you're new here, you're watching Game Brigade. And today, as I mentioned, we're talking about Welcome to Susberg. And this is a self-published game by Rick Wiltsey. And he emailed me and said, hey, Brian, I'd like you to check out my deck building game that I'm working on. That'll be coming to Kickstarter later in October. And I am a big deck builder fan, as I mentioned. So anytime anyone wants to present a new deck builder, I'm always curious to see what it is. And what it looked like when I checked out the rule book and the early impression stuff was that this looked like a great family weight introductory deck builder for people who are new to deck building or a younger demographic who might be interested in trying a little bit more complexity in their board games. This might be for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through a quick how to play and give you my overall impressions of why this game might be a good fit for you. If that sounds interesting, make sure you will keep watching. Okay, so right here we have all of the components that are found in Welcome to Susberg. There are 4 playable characters. You can play this game 2, 3, or 4 players, and this is a cooperative deck builder. So you are working together with your friends to defeat the foes that are attacking your neighborhood. And as I mentioned in the introduction, you are playing as a group of kids who have kind of formed a band of resistance to fight these creatures. And these creatures could be imaginary, they could be real, whatever you choose to believe. Go from there. So we have a few. I have currently set up the athlete, but we also have the inventor, the musician, and the artists. And we'll talk about what each of these do and how they impact the game later in the video. So right here we have the athlete. We have a deck of cards that are our purchase cards. Whenever you're playing a deck builder, you're generally adding cards and removing cards from your deck to make it so it's a more refined and efficient machine. So we have our purchase deck with our available 3 cards, and we have our starter deck with our starting hand. You'll start the game with either 4 or 5 cards in your hand, depending on your player count. I'm going to draw 5 to kind of show an example. So in this example, I've got my 5 cards that I've drawn here. We now have to create which is called the enemy dashboard. Who are we going to be facing? There's a deck of cards that you'll build at the beginning of each game, which has a set amount of enemies of different level types that you're going to be facing against. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to reveal 3. So we're going to go and do that right now. We've got our rogue computer, a greedy gremlin, and a sticky slime. Now, it's important that before I look at my hand, we reveal the enemies, because sometimes these can have an effect that will affect my hand before I look at it. So we want to do that and do any of the effects. So let's take a look at what we got here. The rogue computer says when defeated, draw a card. The greedy gremlin, you must defeat this if able. And when defeated, replace a card in your shop from the sticky slime. So these are the 3 enemies that we're going to be facing. Nothing affects our hand. So we're going to actually draw our 5 cards and go from there and take a look at what the anatomy of these cards look like so we can decide how we want to approach this version of this fight. So looking at our hand, there are a few different types of cards we're looking for, but there's only a few different iconography that you're going to have to worry about. Either the damage symbol or the shield symbol. Sometimes some of these more advanced decks have different symbols, but they're still very simple in terms of what they do. You just have to have a basic idea of what they're doing to understand them. The athlete, their main goal is to trash cards from their deck as well as your allies' deck. So that's the main thing that they're trying to do. And these damage symbols are how you're actually going to deal damage. And the shields are how you're going to prevent damage. And if there's a line, that means like a line with an or, that means you have to choose either or. But if there's just a straight line like these cards that are in my purchase, you can actually get both effects from those cards if you are wanting to or able, if you can meet the requirements. So the way the game works is each player, depending on your player group, will play all their cards simultaneously, and then you'll combine your power when you're fighting your enemies. So here we have 3 minimum damage cards, and we have 2 shields, or I could potentially have 4 damage if I want to. Looking back at the enemies, we have to refer to their specific rules. And this is one of the things that's important about this game, is that each of the enemies have a different type of ability that interacts with the game, changing the variable and the difficulty level as they encounter them. So the greedy gremlin that we have here in the middle says we must defeat this first if able. He has 2 damage that we have to block if we want to not take any damage, and he has 3 health himself. So we can definitely play these 3 cards to defeat the greedy gremlin, but we're unable to defeat either of these 2 with our specific hand, so we'd rather save these cards for the defense phase. So we'll play these to deal 3 damage, defeating the greedy gremlin. We'll slide him to the top for now because his card will become important in a little bit, and then we'll replace him with a new monster, which is the hungry plant. So when defeated, trash a card. But now we have to go to the combat phase. The 2 that were remaining, the sticky slime and the rogue computer, are going to now deal damage to the group, and so we must play defense cards or take damage. The way the defense cards work is you'll play these shield cards out, and you have to play an amount of shields equal to the damage, or otherwise you'll take 1 point of damage. So even though these show 2 as their attack power, they're not going to be dealing 2 damage to me. They're just going to be dealing 1, but it does require at least 2 shields to block the damage. So I'll play 2, blocking the sticky slime, and the rogue computer will deal damage to me, which I would reflect on this board that I have taken 1 damage. The game is immediately over as soon as any of the players have lost all their health. Now, we are going to go to the purchase phase. So in this case, we defeated the greedy gremlin, which means we have some purchasing power. So it gives us $2 to purchase. So you then refer to your purchasing cards that you have available to you. And I'm going to, let's say, I'll buy some shoulder pads for $2. The purchase price is up in the top right corner. We'll put those in our discard and continue the game from there, immediately replacing this with a new card, drawing new cards. We only have 3 in our deck, so we shuffle up our discard and continue from there. Now, if we look at some of these cards, that's the basic routine of the game. You're then going to defeat all the monsters until you've completely emptied your deck of 20 monsters that you have created, and then the people will win. So let's talk about what each of these characters do, and then kind of go over my thoughts about this game. So we have the purple player, who is the inventor, who is dealing with a specific type of energy type, a specific type of gameplay mechanic called energy. They also have 5 health. Now, what the inventor is trying to do is, by collecting an amount of energy, such as these lightning bolt cards, they can allow players to tinker, which means to look at the top card of their deck and then discard it or keep it on top, basically giving you some foresight in terms of what you're going to be getting in terms of your draw deck, and kind of helping you create your hand. So that's what the inventor does. He's playing cards and allowing players to tinker with their top of the deck. And again, this allows all players, so you can choose yourself or other players to take those effects. The musician does something very similar, but they're doing something with the music now. And whenever they play a card that has the music symbol, they'll gain music, and then they're able to use that music to allow players to draw cards or spend music for additional effects, like dealing extra damage, like this card right here. Spend music for another player to draw a card. So you're going to be using these additional resources from the music that you've generated for players to get effects like drawing cards or dealing extra effects from your own cards, making them more powerful. So that's what the musician does. The artist is also a very fun one because it has a kind of a unique mechanic. This one is basically allowing players to set cards to the side for additional use in later rounds, but it also has an interesting mixing mechanic. So you have paint in this one. So in this case, we have green paint, and if we go a little further, we have brown paint. And if you play 2 cards, 2 paints in the same play, that means they're now mixed, and you can get additional effects. So the green paint gives me a shield, but when it's mixed, it deals a damage, and the brown paint deals 2 damage, but when I mix it, I deal an additional 2 damage. So it wants you to have multiples of these paints in your deck, and you want to be playing them at the same time, if possible, to gain their bonus effects. And I said also, they allow players to stash cards, which means they can take a card from their hand, put it to the side, so in a later turn, they have access to those cards and have some more powerful turns to their to their allies and to themselves. So this is the very basic rundown of the way this game works. Very simple, very easy for people to understand this game. And as I said, I've played this with a group of varying ages, and I found it pretty confident that kids around 8 to 9 years old could easily grasp the deck building mechanics of this and enjoy the whimsical fun of the kids defending the neighborhoods. I really wanted to bring out the importance that I thought was kind of special was the game is not necessarily easy. It's got some complexity and not issues, but more complexity and difficulty baked into it because some of the enemies, the way they interact when they're coming out. So, for example, some of them say when this enters, bring another card in the creature. So you can potentially have like 4 monsters out at one time, just escalating the deck from there. It adds a lot more thought into the game in terms of you might think, oh, this is just a game for kids. No, there is some thought here. And when I played this with some of my family parent friends, we also had a lot of fun playing this game. So it's not just for kids, but I found it was a really good introductory game for people who are looking to kind of see what it's like playing a deck builder that might be more intimidated to a more complex system. So I will have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down in my description down below if you're interested in checking this out. I would definitely recommend checking it out because I think it's a great little game for people who are looking for those deck builder experiences. My name is Brian, and I will talk to you very soon.